Hey, if you're a doctor or a nurse and you are looking to open up your own medical practice, whether that's a primary care facility, maybe an urgent care facility, or even like a concierge doctor type business offering, you have come to the right place because we have a financial projection template that is built specifically for you and is going to be what you need to provide to a bank or a potential investor as you're trying to raise capital to get the business off the ground. And so I'm going to walk you through this template today. But first, my name's Adam Huxama. I'm the co-founder of Projection Hub, and over the last decade, we've helped thousands of entrepreneurs create financial projections for all sorts of businesses. Specifically today, we're going to look at this healthcare provider template, which you can get. The link to this template is in the description of the YouTube video below. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So the first place we're going to start is our At a Glance tab. And this is kind of starting with the end in mind. When we complete this process of creating projections, this is what you're going to get. A number of different charts and tables that show your profitability at a glance, a number of key summary data points, startup funds. Once we're finished, we'll get a nice graph here, pie graph. You also get a number of graphs and tables here, as well as a break even. And then you're going to get a income statement summary, a 5-year income statement summary, a 5-year cash flow summary, and a 5-year balance sheet summary. Then income statement for 5 years, but broken down by month. So you get to see each month of detail. And the same thing for the cash flow and the balance sheet. So that's what you're going to get when we're done with this. We're going to start now by going back to our Input Assumptions tab and show you how to fill this out. So I've filled this out assuming this is for a startup practice or facility. And you can use this template for an existing business as well. If you're needing to create projections maybe to grow and to expand and you need projections, or just for internal planning and budgeting. But today what we're looking at is assuming it's a brand new startup. And so we have 0 in here for our current cash balance because you're just starting up. We're going to put 0 in for inventory. We have no accounts receivable balance to start out with because brand new startup. And so let's say you are going to put in $100,000 of investment here of your own money, and then you have 2 partners that are each going to put in $100,000 as well. So we've entered that in. And then your main startup costs here are leasehold improvements. We're assuming $150,000. Maybe you're going to rent some space, but you need to do a lot of work to get it ready for your particular model. And so we've got $150,000 there. We're assuming $75,000 worth of equipment that you'd need, and then furniture and fixtures of $25,000. Then we're also assuming you're going to be able to finance some of that equipment. So $60,000 of that equipment you're going to get an equipment loan for, and then let's assume a small business loan, maybe an SBA loan for $200,000. And then down here, this handy little table will show you, based on the numbers that you've entered, it's going to show you how much working capital you're going to need to cover until you're cash flow positive. And so based on the numbers that we've got entered here on these other tabs, and we'll show you those in a minute, this table is telling you that you're going to need $229,000 in working capital to cover that first 12 months while you move to break even or cash flow positive, as well as the $250,000 for those fixed assets and the leasehold improvements and equipment. And then we're also assuming you should have a $50,000 or 10% buffer as well. So based on that, we're saying that you need $529,000. You're in good shape. It says starting cash is sufficient because you've got $300,000 between you and your partners in terms of investment, as well as the $260,000 in loans. So let's jump into the input revenue tab here. So again, we're assuming this is a brand new startup practice, and so you have 0 patients so far. We're going to spend $3,000 a month on advertising to acquire new patients. And we're assuming it's going to cost $100 to acquire a new patient. And then we're also assuming that you get 100 patients from organic or word of mouth sources as well. So, if you have good experience with one patient and they tell their friends or family to come to you as well. And so we're assuming that. Now, you'll notice here I put a negative 10% growth rate on that word of mouth or organic patient traffic. So that is really because the assumption here is that over time, if you're in a community, there's only so many people that could potentially come to you, right? And so over time, everyone that is a potential patient has heard about you. And so over time, you'd think that word of mouth, those new patients would start to dwindle off until you kind of reach like you're at your capacity. Or at least that new patient source slows down over time. So based on those assumptions, we'll calculate the total number of new patients that you expect to have. And we're saying the maximum number of patients that you can have is 4,000 in your practice, and that you'll lose 15% of those patients annually. Now, if you are more of an urgent care model where you don't really have patients that keep coming back time and time again, it's more of just like sick visits or urgent care visits, you may lose 100% of your patients every year, or like 90%, because people are not going to necessarily come back unless they have another urgent or emergent issue. So keep that in mind. But in this case, we're assuming, more of a primary care model, let's say, where you're going to have recurring patients time and time again. And so you'll be able to enter in these different categories of services, and then you can add in the specific services that you plan to offer. And we've just given like some example services. Probably the reality is that you won't offer all of these. You'll probably specialize. Like if you're a pediatrician's office, then you wouldn't have adult office sick visits, right? So, keep that in mind. These are here for example purposes. And you can pick the different category they're in, the average fee, and then the material cost. So if there's any supplies that you'd expect to spend per visit, gloves, masks, other consumables, that sort of thing, that's what you'd be putting in there. And then this is saying, on average, how many times per year is an average patient coming for each of these services. So for, a child sick visit, for example, the average patient will come once per year, or maybe, if you're like my kids, it might be 3 or 4 times a year. So you can fill out those number of times per year each patient will come for each service, right? And then you can put in what percentage of the fee you expect to be reimbursed. If you charge, X percent, what does the insurance, if you put your retail price here, I guess, then the insurance is only going to pay a portion of that. Then you can say what portion do you expect insurance or the customers to end up paying here. So if it's 90%, or it might be 70%. So make sure to adjust that. Now we'll calculate your number or your revenue for your different services here. Then jumping over to our input other expense tab, we can add in various expenses that we have, operating expenses like accounting and credit card fees. So I'll show you as an example here. You can enter in any of your expenses as a fixed dollar amount. So there's a drop-down box here. You can enter it in as a fixed dollar amount or a percentage of revenue. And so for accounting, we'd say, well, this is just going to be a fixed $500 per month. But credit card fees, if you have patients paying with credit card, as an example, that might be 2% of revenue for that credit card processing fee. And so if you enter it in as 0.02 and select percent of revenue, then the template's automatically going to calculate what that credit card processing fee expense should be each month and enter that in for you. You've got your insurance, your rent, and of course, if you have other expenses for your specific plan, because everybody's business is going to be slightly different. So as you are doing your specific planning and have other expenses, you have a lot of slots here that you can enter in additional expenses. Now jumping over to our Salaries tab. This tab is quite flexible and powerful, but you can enter in doctors, medical staff, and other positions kind of in those categories. And you have the ability to add a base salary. So let's say you're the owner and you're also going to be working as a doctor in the facility, and you can give yourself a base salary, but you can also add a variable compensation as a percentage of your production. So this is saying that you also earn, in addition to a $50,000 base salary, you'd earn 20% of whatever revenue you bring in. And so then in this example here, what we're doing is we have that same first doctor for the first 2 years at this $50,000 and 20% variable compensation. We're assuming that doctor, one doctor, is bringing in 70% of the revenue. So why not 100% of the revenue? Well, that could be because there are other revenue sources that are not directly tied. So it could be, maybe lab services or pharmacy, that sort of thing. Other revenue that maybe isn't directly tied to your labor. But it might be, maybe it is 100%. You could put 100% in there and you get 20% of the whole pie. And you say, okay, this position starts on month 1, but it ends on month 24 because here in month 25, we're gonna actually hire a second doctor. And so you're still gonna earn your 50,000 base plus your 20% variable compensation, but you're only going to be generating 35% of the total revenue, and the other 35% is split with this other doctor now. And so that would then calculate what your total variable compensation would be. You can see for medical staff, so RNs or nurses, you would be able to add their salaries. You might start out with a couple part-time, maybe you move to full-time over time. So you can see you start 2 part-time RNs in month 1, and then in month 13 and month 25, you bring on a 3rd and a 4th full-time in this example. And then you can have maybe an office manager and a front desk manager as well. And maybe in the month 30, kind of 2.5 years in, you bring on an extra front desk worker. So that's an example. This is not necessarily prescriptive that these are the positions you should have and when you should start them. It's really just an default data here to give you some idea of how you can use this template, how you can fill it out. And hopefully that is clear and going to be helpful for you. And once you've done that, you bring us back to our at a glance tab where you can see how you're performing based on that. So again, if you have any questions about how to fill this out, don't hesitate to reach out. You can leave a comment in the video section, comment section below on YouTube, or reach out to us at support@projectionhub.com. We'd be happy to help. Thanks.